The automatic glass doors of Grand Harbor Mall opened at exactly 9 a.m. Morning shoppers slowly walked in as store employees prepared for another busy day. Music played softly through the speakers, lights reflected off the polished floors, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted from the cafe near the entrance. Grand Harbor Mall was one of the most successful shopping centers in the city. Over 300 stores, luxury brands, restaurants, cinemas. Every weekend, thousands of people filled the building. But among all the well-dressed managers, stylish shoppers, and busy workers, there was one man almost nobody noticed, a quiet security guard named Samuel Reed. Samuel wore a simple dark blue security uniform. He carried a small radio on his belt and slowly walked the mall corridors every day. He wasn't young anymore. His hair had begun turning gray. Most of the time, Samuel could be seen sitting near the main entrance desk, watching people pass by. Some store employees thought he looked lazy. Some shoppers ignored him completely. A few even spoke to him rudely. But Samuel never reacted. He simply nodded politely and continued doing his job. Every morning, every afternoon, every evening. Always calm, always quiet. There was one employee who always respected Samuel. The mall's administrative clerk, Emily Parker. Emily worked in the small management office on the third floor. Whenever Samuel walked past her office, she greeted him warmly. "Good morning, Mr. Reed." Samuel always smiled gently. "Morning, Emily." But there was something unusual about their conversations. Whenever other staff members were nearby, Emily immediately switched her tone. "Good morning, Sam," as if she had almost said something else. Years earlier, Samuel had made a very specific request to her. "Emily," he said quietly, "please keep this between us." Emily had nodded seriously. "I understand." From that day forward, she kept the secret to everyone else in the mall. Samuel Reed was just another security guard, nothing special. 1 year earlier, the mall hired a new operations manager, Richard Blake. Richard was ambitious, loud, and liked showing authority. During meetings, he constantly reminded employees who was in charge. "This mall runs because of good management," he often said. Richard believed one thing strongly: everyone should look busy. If someone appeared relaxed, Richard assumed they were useless, and eventually, he noticed Samuel. One afternoon, Richard walked through the main lobby. He saw Samuel sitting calmly near the security desk, watching people enter the mall. Richard frowned. He walked over. "You?" Samuel looked up calmly. "Yes." Richard crossed his arms. "Why are you sitting?" Samuel answered quietly. "I'm monitoring the entrance." Richard looked around. Shoppers walked in and out normally. Everything looked peaceful. Richard scoffed. "Looks like the easiest job in the building." A few nearby employees laughed softly. Samuel simply nodded. But Richard had another reason for being annoyed. His younger brother had recently lost his job, and Richard wanted to help him. The security department had limited positions. But Samuel's job looked perfect: an easy role, good pay, stable hours. So one evening Richard walked into the HR office. "That security guard, Samuel Reed." "Yes." "Terminate him." The HR officer hesitated. "He's been working here a very long time." Richard leaned forward. "I'm the operations manager." The decision was made. The next afternoon Samuel was called into the office. Emily stood there quietly, holding a printed letter. Her hands looked slightly tense. Samuel read the document calmly. Security position termination notice. After 25 years working at the mall, he was being fired. Emily looked upset. "I'm really sorry." Samuel smiled gently. "It's all right." He removed his security badge, placed it on the desk, and said something surprising. "I think I deserve a vacation." Then he walked out of the building, quietly, without argument. The next morning Richard proudly introduced his brother. "Daniel Blake, this is our new security guard." Daniel looked confident. The other guards exchanged uncertain looks, but no one spoke. For the first few hours everything seemed normal. But by midday, problems began appearing. A shoplifting incident happened near the electronics store. Security arrived too late. Later, a group of teenagers caused trouble in the food court. Security didn't respond quickly enough. Then something worse happened. 2 stores reported missing merchandise. Mall management began receiving complaints. Store owners were angry. Richard became frustrated. "What are you doing?" He shouted at Daniel, "I'm trying." But the problems kept growing because something important had disappeared from the mall. Not just a security guard, but the person who understood the entire building. Within a week, store managers were complaining daily. Security response was slow. Incidents were increasing, customers felt unsafe. Some stores even threatened to end their lease agreements. The mall board began asking questions. Richard felt pressure rising, then someone mentioned a name. Things were never like this when Samuel was here. Richard frowned. For the first time, he began to worry. Richard found Samuel's number in the system. He called, no answer. He called again. Still nothing. Meanwhile, across the city, Samuel sat on the balcony of his house enjoying a peaceful afternoon. For the first time in years, he had nowhere to patrol. No alarms to check, no reports to review. His phone buzzed repeatedly, missed calls from the mall. Samuel simply placed the phone back on the table and continued reading his newspaper. 2 weeks later, a serious security incident occurred at the mall parking garage. The board of directors demanded an emergency meeting. Richard was under intense pressure. Finally, someone suggested bringing Samuel back temporarily. Emily contacted him. "Mr. Reed, the board would like you to come to the mall tomorrow." Samuel paused, then replied calmly, "All right." The next morning, Samuel walked into Grand Harbor Mall again. But this time, he wasn't wearing his security uniform. He wore a clean, elegant business suit. Several employees stared in confusion. Richard walked toward him with an annoyed expression. "Well, look who decided to come back." He smirked. "Nice suit for a security guard." A few supervisors chuckled. Then Richard pointed toward the security control room. "Go fix the mess your replacement couldn't handle." Samuel was about to respond. But Emily stepped forward. "Mr. Blake." Her voice was firm. "I think there's something everyone should know." The room became quiet. Emily looked at the managers, then the store representatives, then the board members who had arrived, and she said the words that change everything. "Samuel Reed is not a security guard." Richard frowned. "What?" Emily continued calmly. "He is the founder and owner of Grand Harbor Mall." Silence filled the entire lobby. Store managers stared in shock. Employees looked at each other. Richard's face turned pale. "Owner?" Samuel nodded calmly. "I built this mall 30 years ago." He smiled slightly. "I just prefer walking the halls instead of sitting in an office." Suddenly everything made sense. Why Samuel knew every corner of the building. Why store owners respected him. Why he understood every problem before it happened. Samuel turned toward Richard. "You fired me so your brother could take my job." Richard stammered. "I didn't know." Samuel raised his hand calmly. "Your position as operations manager is terminated." Security escorted Richard and his brother out of the building. The employees watched silently. Then Samuel turned toward the security team. "All right," he smiled. "Let's restore order." Within days, Grand Harbor Mall returned to normal. Because the quiet security guard everyone ignored had always been the one protecting the entire place.